$10 million. That is the price tag Washington just put on the head of a man they claim is already defeated. As the war with Iran enters its third bloody week, the Pentagon is declaring total destruction of the Iranian Air Force and Navy. They say the new supreme leader is hiding in a hole, wounded and disfigured. But if the victory is so complete, why are 5,000 U.S. Marines and the USS Tripoli racing from Japan to the Gulf? And why did Donald Trump just do the unthinkable, lifting sanctions on Russian oil to stop an American economic meltdown? Sophie, the reports from the State Department are chilling. We are looking at a task force trained for one specific thing: securing maritime chokeholds. The Straits of Hormuz are at a dead standstill. Hundreds of millions of barrels of oil are stuck, and the global economy is suffocating. Gas prices in the UK have hit an 18-month high. Diesel is skyrocketing. Crude oil has settled at a volatile $100 a barrel. To save the American voter from the pump, the White House has opened a 30-day window for Russian oil. It's a move that has left Ukraine's President Zelensky in shock, calling it a gift to Putin's war chest. But for Trump, the priority isn't Kyiv, it's the price of petrol at home. Meanwhile, inside Iran, the decimation has a human face. 15,000 targets have been hit. Schools, businesses, and 20,000 homes are in ruins. 3 million people are on the run. The U.S. claims they are hunting rats in bunkers, but the Iranian Red Crescent is pulling children from the rubble of residential alleys in Isfahan. And now, a new player enters the board. In the mountains of northern Iraq, the Peshmerga, Kurdish fighters exiled for decades, are sharpening their blades. They want a no-fly zone. They want revenge for their families executed by the regime. They are ready to cross the border, but they have one question: can we trust Trump? Even as the U.S. claims Iran's military is gone, British typhoons are still shooting down swarms of drones over Bahrain and Dubai. If the Navy is destroyed, who is launching the drones? President Trump says he'll know the war is over when he feels it in his bones. But with oil tankers stuck and a $10 million bounty unclaimed, those bones might be feeling the chill of a much longer winter than he promised. Is the Russia oil deal a masterstroke of economic survival or a betrayal of America's allies? And can 5,000 Marines finish a war that 15,000 strikes couldn't? Comment Russian oil if you think the sanctions should have stayed, or gas prices if you think Trump made the right call. Subscribe and hit the bell. We are the only ones tracking the 15,000 targets and what comes next. They call him a rat, a disfigured, wounded man cowering in a concrete hole beneath Tehran. That is the official word from Washington, backed by a staggering $10 million bounty for anyone who can deliver his location. But while the Pentagon counts 15,000 successful strikes, the streets of Iran tell a different story. Loyalists are flooding the squares, carrying his image as a badge of defiance. Is the U.S. hunting a ghost, or is the most powerful man in Iran already dead, replaced by a digital ghost to keep the revolution alive? Sophie, the State Department is betting big on human greed. $10 million is enough to turn any loyalist into a traitor. But the intelligence reports are conflicting. On one hand, U.S. officials claim the initial strikes didn't just kill his family, they left the new supreme leader unrecognizable. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Iranian military has been decimated. 15,000 targets hit in less than 14 days. Air defenses? Gone. Air Force? Vaporized. To Washington, the war is effectively won. They are just waiting for the rats to come out of the cellar. But then, look at Iranian state TV. President Masoud Pezeshkian isn't hiding. He's walking the streets, looking relaxed, even smiling. And alongside him, the hardline head of the judiciary is sending a message directly to Donald Trump. You are not intelligent enough to understand us. The more pressure you exert, the stronger we become. Even as an airstrike hit during a live interview, the Iranian leadership didn't flinch. This isn't the behavior of a decimated regime. This is the behavior of a nation that has accepted its fate. But beneath the propaganda, the human cost is catastrophic. The Iranian Red Crescent is pulling bodies from residential alleys in Isfahan. 20,000 homes are gone. Schools, businesses, and even Red Crescent facilities have been turned to rubble. 3 million Iranians are now refugees, crowding the Turkish border, fleeing a rain of fire that hasn't stopped for 20 days. But as the Marines prepare for their amphibious landing, a secret front is opening in the north. Shiao Bluri, a Kurdish Peshmerga fighter who lost 18 family members to the regime, is waiting at the border with thousands of others. They are asking for a U.S. no-fly zone. If Trump gives it to them, the war isn't just about airstrikes anymore. It's about a ground-level revenge that Washington might not be able to control. Why is Trump lifting Russian sanctions while hunting an Iranian leader? Because 15,000 strikes haven't lowered the price of gas. The USS Tripoli isn't just bringing Marines. It's bringing a desperate hope to stabilize a region that is rapidly spinning into a dark humanitarian abyss. Is the disfigured leader story a brilliant piece of psychological warfare? Or is Washington trying to justify a war that is becoming too expensive to win? The $10 million bounty is still on the table, but the price of oil is what everyone is truly watching. Comment bounty if you think he's hiding, or defiance if you think Iran is winning the propaganda war. Subscribe and hit the bell. We are moving to Part 3, the Kurdish Front and the battle for Isfahan. $10 million. That is the price of a ghost. As the war enters its third week, Washington has just placed a staggering bounty on the head of Mujtaba Khamenei, the man the Pentagon claims is wounded and disfigured, cowering in a bunker while his nation burns. But here is the shocker. While the U.S. hunts for a rat in the rubble, Donald Trump just handed Vladimir Putin a 30-day gift, lifting sanctions on Russian oil to stop an American economic heart attack. Is this a victory march? Or is the $11 billion a week price tag of Operation Epic Fury finally forcing the eagle to blink? The State Department's Rewards for Justice list just got a lot longer. It's not just Mujtaba. 10 top leaders, including Security Chief Ali Larijani, are now marked men. The message to the Iranian people is clear. Betray your leaders and you get a ticket to America and a fortune. But the decimation narrative is hitting a wall. Yes, Secretary Pete Hegseth says 15,000 targets are gone. He says the Iranian Navy is at the bottom of the Gulf and the Air Force is no longer. But if the enemy is blind and broken, why are 2,500 Marines and the USS Tripoli racing from Japan at top speed? You don't send an amphibious assault ship to fight a ghost. You send it to seize ground. The reality on the ground is far from clean. While Trump posts on Truth Social that Iran is decimated, the Red Crescent is pulling bodies from the UNESCO sites of Isfahan. 3 million refugees are screaming toward the Turkish border, and in the north, the Peshmerga are no longer waiting. Thousands of Kurdish fighters are massing on the Iraqi border, ready to open a second front. They want a no-fly zone. They want blood for the families the regime hung in the streets. But Trump's biggest enemy isn't in Tehran, it's at the gas pump. By loosening sanctions on Russian oil, Trump has admitted what the 44th wave of missiles already proved. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, and the global economy is suffocating. Ukraine's Zelensky is calling it a betrayal. But for the White House, the 30-day Russian window is the only thing keeping the lights on in America. But as the USS Tripoli crosses the Philippine Sea, a commercial satellite just spotted something else moving toward the Gulf. A fleet that doesn't belong to the US and doesn't belong to Iran. Is the $10 million bounty a sign of strength or a desperate move to spark a coup before the US economy collapses? And who is the disfigured leader really? A dying man or a digital puppet? The hunt is on, and the stakes are $100 a barrel. Comment bounty if you think Mojtaba is already gone, or trap if you think the US is walking into a regional quagmire. Subscribe and hit the bell. Part 4, the Peshmerga incursion, is coming up next. While the Pentagon counts its 15,000 airstrikes from 30,000 feet, a different kind of fire is being lit in the shadow of the Zagros Mountains. They call themselves the Peshmerga, literally, those who face death. Exiled for decades, their families executed by the hangman's noose in Tehran, they are no longer watching the war on TV. They are sharpening their blades at the border. One fighter, Xiao Blurry, has lost 18 members of his family to the regime. 18. For him, this isn't about global oil prices or maritime chokeholds. This is about blood. And as they mass by the thousands, they have one demand for Donald Trump. Give us the sky, and we will take the land. Body content. The mountains of northern Iraq are now the staging ground for a second front that could turn the Iran war into a regional inferno. These aren't just disorganized rebels. These are battle-hardened Iranian Kurdish opposition groups who have finally joined forces. Their goal? To cross back into their homeland and trigger the internal collapse that 15,000 bombs couldn't achieve. But this is where the manhunt for the $10 million leader gets complicated. The Peshmerga are asking for a no-fly zone. They want U.S. air cover to protect them as they march toward Isfahan and Tehran. It sounds like a win for Washington, right? A ground force that costs 0 American lives. But there's a catch. Donald Trump has blown hot and cold on these fighters before. In the mountains, the message is clear. We do not trust Trump. They fear that the moment the oil starts flowing again, or the moment the $10 million bounty is paid, the U.S. will leave them to the wolves. Meanwhile, inside Iran, the woman, life, freedom movement, once brutally crushed, is finding its second wind. As the airstrikes decimate the regime's air defenses, the internal resistance is looking to the mountains. If the Peshmerga cross that border, they won't just be fighting the IRGC. They will be leading a national uprising of millions who have nothing left to lose. But as the USS Tripoli brings 5,000 more Marines to the Gulf, the Pentagon is facing a nightmare scenario. A multi-front war involving Kurds, Israelis, and an embittered Iranian population. Can the U.S. control a revolution they didn't start? Or is the 44th wave of missiles about to be met by a tidal wave of ground-level revenge that spreads into Iraq, Turkey, and beyond? But as the Kurdish commanders watch the skies for U.S. jets, they've received intelligence of a drone strike hitting one of their secret bases. The strike didn't come from Iran's decimated air force. It came from an unidentified source that suggests the Russian window Trump opened for oil might have a much darker military price. The Peshmerga are ready to face death. But is Washington ready for the consequences of a liberated Iran? If the Kurds cross the border, does the war end, or does the real chaos begin? Comment freedom if you support the Peshmerga Front, or stay out if you think this is a trap for the U.S. military. Subscribe and hit the bell for Part 5, the final endgame and the secret White House exit plan. The third week of the Iran war is ending, and the world we knew 21 days ago is gone. We've seen 15,000 strikes, a $10 million bounty on a wounded ghost, and the USS Tripoli racing to a gulf that has become a graveyard of tankers. But as the Peshmerga prepare to cross the mountains and the U.S. opens the Russian window for oil, the most terrifying question isn't who wins, it's what did we lose to get here? Donald Trump says it will be over soon because he feels it in his bones. But those bones are resting on a global energy shock that is just beginning to fracture the West. In Washington, the narrative is victory. They show you pictures of B-2 stealth bombers and empty Iranian hangars. They tell you the regime is cowering like rats. But go to the pumps in London or New York and you'll see the reality. Gas prices are at an 18-month high. Diesel is breaking records. The effective closure of the Straits of Hormuz has sent a wave of inflation that no amount of bombing can stop. This is why the White House did the unthinkable, loosening sanctions on Russian oil while hunting an Iranian leader. It is a desperate 30-day play to save the American economy before the voters judge the cost of this war. While Ukraine's Zelensky warns of a betrayal, the U.S. is quietly admitting that you can't fight a war in the Middle East and an economic war with Russia at the same time. Something had to give. And in the north, the Peshmerga are the wild card that could burn the whole house down. If they cross that border to honor their dead, they won't stop at the bunkers. They will trigger a regional explosion that spreads from Isfahan to the heart of Iraq. Trump says he's dictating the course of this conflict. But can he dictate the rage of 18 million Kurds who finally have their day of revenge? The 15,000 targets were the easy part. The hard part is what comes next. A disfigured leader hiding in a hole. A world dependent on Russian oil to survive an Iranian war. And thousands of British and American nationals stranded in budget hotels across the globe. Because the sky is no longer safe. As the USS Tripoli nears the region, a leaked memo from the G7 meeting suggests that the 30-day Russian Waiver might not be temporary. It might be the start of a permanent shift in the world's alliance, one where the old rules of sanctions and diplomacy are buried under $100 a barrel. War is a ledger where the numbers are written in blood and paid in petrol. We've shown you the manhunt, the Marines, and the secret deals. Now, you decide. Is this the end of the Iranian regime or the start of a global chaos that Washington can no longer control? This concludes our special investigation into the third week of the Iran war. We've tracked the missiles, the oil tankers, and the $10 million ghost. If you want to be the first to know when the USS Tripoli makes its move, you need to be part of this channel. Comment Endgame if you think Trump will finish this by next week, or Quagmire if you think the worst is yet to come. Subscribe, hit the bell, and stay vigilant. The world has changed. Have you?